Before the season even kicks off, soccer fans are already making predictions. Who wins the league? Who qualifies for Europe? And who's lifting the trophy at season's end? On Kalshi, America's #1 prediction market platform, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code CUP26 to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade the beautiful game. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory.
Low energy, unfocused, foggy? You might be dehydrated. Whether it's hot yoga, over 100-degree weather, or too much sun. Gator Light, with a specialized blend of 5 electrolytes, was scientifically designed to help move fluids into the body faster for rapid rehydration. Shop now at retailers nationwide. Gator Light hydrates faster than water. Is it in you? Symptoms noted are signs of mild to moderate dehydration. Consult a healthcare professional if symptoms persist.
This message is brought to you by Apple Card. Shave ice by the beach. A trip to the state fair. And a throwback flick at the local drive-in. They're more than just items to check off the summer bucket list. They're also opportunities to earn 2% daily cash back when you use your Apple Card with Apple Pay. Apply for Apple Card now and use in minutes with Apple Pay. Subject to credit approval. Apple Card is issued by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, Salt Lake City branch. Terms and more at applecard.com.
Hello and welcome to Haway, the podcast. It's Martin and we've got a Q&A episode for you today. Remember, you can send your questions in via social media or by emailing hawaythepodcast@safc@gmail.com. And thank you to everyone who's done that for today's show. Now, with a nil point start to the season and the transfer deadline looming, there's a load to talk about today. So we'll get straight into it by introducing our guests this morning. So first of all, we'll say good morning to Andrew Smithson. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Mara. How are you doing?
I am very well. I'm better than I was yesterday. We talked to James Copley on Sunday, didn't we? And it was good to get that little bit off our chests and looking forward now, looking ahead rather than looking too far back. But there's a lot of questions about the Ipswich game, which we might rake up a few things we thought we'd buried yesterday, but never mind. That is all par for the course. And joining me and Andrew today is Ant. Morning, Ant.
Hello. Yes. So we're back again, Ed. The threesome. Looks like Andrew's having one in his little photo. So,
well, we've just been talking about Andrew and Big Bad Don and Bally. So there we go. Andrew's tucked in the middle of them, aren't you, Andrew?
It's been a while, mind. It's been a while. So I'm looking forward to it. My face is as pink as my shirt. I don't know if you can see. It's crazy. I don't know what's going on here.
Too early. Never mind that one. Right, we're gonna get straight into it because we've got tons to get through and we are on a tight schedule today. So we have got a number of questions about the Ipswich game. Now I'll run through a few of them because they cover off a few points. Millsy has asked, do you think we overtrained this week? We looked lethargic and from 60 minutes onwards, apart from one burst forward, we were blowing out of our arses, or were Ipswich just buoyed on with the opening day home atmosphere and the adrenaline? Steve Richards at Stitcho Steve says, yes, again, lots of possession and little goal threat. Ipswich was set up to exploit any mistakes and we obliged. Was it a bad day or a worrying hangover from last season? And Rob Ellison Davison says, opening game of the season away against a newly promoted team would always be a banana skin, not quite clinical enough and sloppy at the back. We were bound to get punished. World Cup hangover, maybe? But let's get that out of our system and fast. And it was look, nobody's going to pretend it was the start of the season that we want. Nobody's going to pretend that we played absolutely brilliantly and everything was hunky-dory. But how did you view the game? Millsy's asked there about, that, or said that we looked a bit lethargic from the hour mark. And I think, Andrew and I talked to James Copley on the pod yesterday, and really that was part of the conversation. Were we a bit tired after the World Cup? Were some of the players a bit tired after the World Cup anyway? But how do you see that one?
I think you're probably going to... You you take our result out of everything. You look at all the other results over the weekend, and you look at like a lot of the teams who had a lot of players at the World Cup because they've come back a little bit later, have had difficult starts to the season. Like you look at like United, who had a lot of the World Cup, got beat off Hull 2-0 and got turned over quite impressively, to be fair. Whereas ours was a last minute winner, which we gave to them. So I'm not really all that worried about fitness. You know, yeah, I think a few of them did look tired. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna lie. I think Granit Xhaka looked a bit lethargic by the end of the game. But that'll come back. That'll be fine. That, but I think you look at it. I think it's in an isolation game there where we've lost to a 90th minute winner of our own doing. And I don't think fitness comes into that. It's just stupidity, to be honest. When you're defending I say defending a 1-1 because I don't think Ipswich were looking that threatening anyway. But when it's 1-1 in the 90th minute, I want my set of defender to lump it forward. You know, because they can't score from their own half, can they? You know what I mean? So I think that was a bit silly. But I think during like fitness wise, I'd be very, very surprised if Regis Debris has overtrained them. You know, I'd be really surprised by that. I agree with the second point. I mean, the second point where he said about last season come back to haunt us, finished 7th. It's as if we had a poor season. Yes, we give away goals and all that, yeah, but every team does that. It's just playing out from the back stuff, you know. It costs goals. It's Pep Guardiola's fault. I've said this for weeks. And the last question, I can't remember the full of it, but it was kind of it was a banana skin. You know, you're looking into every promoted side in their home games are going to want to get off to a good start at home because they saw what us and Leeds did last year, where our home form was massively important in keeping us up. So it was a banana skin, like you say. You look at United and Hull. I mean, Hull were very, very good against United, and you know, and I would have bit your hand off for a draw on Saturday, and I was actually really happy that we were getting that. I thought we'd like kind of clawed ourselves back into the game and everything like that. And then the second half I just thought was a much of muchness. I thought we were about as threatening as them, and the big chance that came was of our own doing. And to be fair to them, they took it, and Jack Clark took it very, very well. So it's one of them ones where it's like, yes, it's disappointing, but it's one game, and you know, put it on the shelf, and it's gone, and you know, give Fulham a good game, and hopefully get the 3 points on Sunday.
And Andrew, there was a point that was raised in Steve Richards's question there, and also there's a question from Andy Lynn. Andy Lynn asks, given how poor our attacking threat was last season, no signs it's improving after yesterday's showing. He links this to a recruitment question. Why do you think our recruitment team have been so slow to act? But, you know, I picked up on the point in Steve's question about a worrying hangover from last season. Now, I've got an issue with both of those points to some extent. And hangover from last season when we finished 7th. And look, we've talked about the fact that with one or two things going differently, we could have finished 13th. One or two things going differently, we could have finished 5th. It was that tight in that area and congested. We talked in the previous pod about the relatively low number of goals that we scored last season. But we haven't typically under Lebris relied on, you know, belting teams 4 or 5-0 or outscoring teams 4-3, 5-4. We play a very precise way in that we try to counter-attack, get the opportunities, be clinical with the opportunities. And yes, we weren't clinical. Now, I do agree, I think Robert had raised the point, we weren't quite clinical enough and we were sloppy at the back. And I think those two things combined end up with an outcome like we saw at the weekend. But, you know, do we think our attacking threat is, but I'm not saying that can't be improved. I think it can be improved. And I think we'll try to make inroads into the transfer market this week to improve it. But there's a danger here of having a little bit of a narrative that's not necessarily correct, I think.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't want to come across as if I'm digging my head in the sand and ignoring what's happened in the past. I just feel that the weekend it was just one game. We've only lost one. It was only lost one game. If results and performances continue like this for the next few weeks, you can maybe then start drawing conclusions and comparing things. But to me, I, I I don't think we lost because of any tactical reason or any fitness or physical reason or effort. I just think it was two mistakes, and we got punished for them. That happened on occasion last season. I remember we lost a very narrow game against Fulham with a late goal, and I can't remember the details now. I can't remember if there was an actual mistake or if it was just fairly weak defending. And it was annoying, but it didn't define the season. And then a few weeks later, we went to Brighton. We played a similar way, didn't concede a sloppy goal, and we got a point. And everybody was happy with that. Everyone said, oh, that's a decent away showing. The games weren't that different. Just in one of them, we conceded a goal. And I think, yeah, you're right in that, Martin. You're right in that we are fairly defensive, and our plan in general is to be safe and then clinical on the odd, not the odd occasion, but clinical when we do break out. You could never describe Sunderland as gung-ho, but it was a debate that happened a lot last season, and I think the general consensus was it's better to be like that because over the course of the season, you're going to get more points doing it that way rather than being wide open and bombing forward all the time. So, yeah, I'm not too concerned. Not too concerned.
This is the Bristol style of play, though, isn't it? This isn't anything different, new. This is the way that Regis Lebris approaches football. And even if you hark back to when he was first appointed and we talked to people from France about how his team set up, all that sort of stuff, and looked at all of the stats, it was a consistent thing about his teams often have low possession. And that wasn't the case on Saturday. We had more possession. But relatively low possession, don't create boatloads of chances, but are very clinical when the chances do come along. And that's what he's done, really, in his 2 seasons at Sunderland so far. So to expect a vast change in the first game of the season, you could argue that there was a bit of a change. We saw us try to dominate possession, whereas last season, we might well have gone, okay, you don't have the ball. You don't have the ball, and we'll try to counter. So I do think there has been a progression in how we approach games. But, I do think it's absolutely as simple on Saturday. If you're just talking about Saturday specifically, it's absolutely as simple as Rob said about we weren't clinical enough and we were sloppy at the back. Now, I don't care how you play football. If you're not clinical enough and sloppy at the back, you're going to lose a game.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. We are developing as a side, and we are changing style to a point, but it is only to a point. Nobody's expecting that within the next month we're going to be like playing 10 up top and winning games 5-4 and that. You're right. This is Lebris's style, and I don't know if this makes me sound glib or whatever, or even if glib is the right word here, but that style has got us promoted and has got us into the Europa League. So it's doing its job. Unfortunately, no team is perfect. Teams will lose in the Premier League. And the stat I heard, I know Coventry is still a play at home, but of the 6 newly promoted teams this season and last, so far, 5 of them have won their opening home game. So
yeah,
we've caught Ipswich on a day when they are going to be at it and potentially playing above themselves. So, defeat hurts. It always hurts. I'm not particularly pleased. I think we did let ourselves down to a point, but I wouldn't be reacting and drawing conclusions just off this one match.
Absolutely not. Now, I'll go to the second part of Andy Lynn's question here, Ant, and I'll follow it up with another one which links to the same point. So Andy had added a second part of his question. Why do you think our recruitment team have been so slow to act during the summer? And somebody with the username of Regis Lafee, which is a great combination of two excellent people, at Andy Rue 79 says, do you agree that the arrogant approach to transfers contributed to the result on Saturday? Failure to sign a right back or right winger directly cost us. Overall complacency of players with no competition. But we didn't need to improve for the start of the season, apparently. Now, look, I'm not going to just dive in, disagree completely with anybody, but I don't think we've taken an arrogant approach to transfers this season. I think we've taken Lebris used the word precise after one of the games in pre-season, didn't he? And we've had to be very deliberate and precise with the transfer activity that we've undertaken. We've got to get a small group of players in at the right price. And again, on the podcast that Andrew and I did with James Copley on Sunday, he was explaining the financial implications of what we can spend, what we can't spend, the impact of it all, and how that is, it's not restricting us, but it's certainly influencing how we approach things this season. But, put it to you, has the failure to sign centre-back or right winger directly cost us on Saturday? And we have complacency of players with no competition.
Was the question a centre-back or a right-back? Because you said right-back to begin with.
Sorry.
We've signed a right... Is it a centre-back?
Centre-back or right wing, sorry.
All right, okay, that's all right. Yeah, that's fine, because I'm going to say because we've signed a right-back, so that question's moot. Do we need one, though? Like, we've got 4. We've got, like, Alderete, Ballard, Mukiele, O'Nien. Do we need another one? I don't know.
You'd like to... I would like to see one, I have to say. And I think there's been a number of people who've been tentatively linked. Like the lad who went to Leeds was quite strongly linked at the start of the summer, wasn't he? So I do think the club are trying to get a centre-back, and probably a left-sided centre-back, to play alongside either Ballard or Mukiele. But, I always come back to the point that whoever we'd signed, do they come straight into the team? Obviously, we saw Munier come into the team on Saturday, didn't he? But that was partly tactical, partly because of injury to Mukiele.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think people come straight into the side under Lebris.
No, I agree. I mean, I think if we're being greedy, another centre-half it'd be nice, but I think there's more pressing matters as in a right winger. I definitely think we need a right winger. I think he'd bang on there. I don't think it's been lazy recruitment. I really don't. I think you look at, again, you're going back to the World Cup, you go back to a lot of sides who still need a lot of players, and I think you're going to see a very, very busy last week of the transfer window, and it shuts a week today. And I think you're going to see a lot of teams, especially after that first week of the season, going to be a little bit more proactive in the transfer window, and I think we'll be one of them. I really do. I think we'll get a couple over the line. I mean, we've got obviously 2 coming in, haven't we? Obviously, Metelia's signed, and the lad is it a Cora? Is he called a Koha or something? Who's coming? You know what I'm like with names, so that'll be massively wrong. But the centre midfielder who looks an exciting player, but obviously is very young. But so they're making strides. Yes, we need a right wing. I do agree with that. I really do. I mean, I'd put Angulo there and just say, right, you're playing right. But and bring Talby in or something along those lines on the left. But we do probably need one. I don't like this Hume Experiment. I've said this last season. I'm not a huge fan of him there. I prefer him at right back. I think he's a very good right back. I think we probably could have done with him at right back, especially in the second half against Ipswich, because I think what Munier does give, I think Munier is a good player. I think he's good going forward as well. But we missed that Trey Hume, sliding tackle or, clattering into somebody, which he can do very well. I think we missed that a little bit. And I think he would have done that. He would have allowed Jack Clark to cut in as easy as what Munier allowed him to, because obviously Trey knows him very well. And Trey probably would have stopped that at the source. But again, by the by, it is what it is. I do think we need a right winger. And if I was greedy as well, just to point out, I wouldn't mind another striker. Just because we haven't got that Mayenda third choice striker in yet. We've only got him and Isidore, and if one of them gets injured, then we are short. So I wouldn't mind another striker to come in. So that'd be my... I would say a right winger, definitely. Striker, definitely. Centre-half, maybe, but I wouldn't be overly bothered if we didn't get one. and then that's it. Though we don't need any more. So we need 3, really. And then I think I'm quite happy with the business we've done. And like I say, I think because a lot of, and I know because we lost sight of the book, these questions are going to be negatively based. But we need to kind of, I think, take our negative Nancy hats off and remember that this is a good side. Andrew's made a hell of a point there about the promoted sides. Like, 5 out of 5 currently yet to play, and currently have got a favourable home tie. That, first game of the season at home, sides are going to be up for it. And Saturday reminded me, I went to Burnley, the first away game last year, and it was a very similar game where we had chances and didn't take them. They had 2 proper clear-cut chances and took them, and that's it. That's what the Premier League is. You've got to take your chances when you're on top, and sometimes, if you don't, you get punished, and that's what it is. It's a very, very, like I say, very, very open league and stuff like that. So, I mean, like, I'm not really worried at all, especially when you look at the weekend's fixtures. I'd be a lot more worried if I was fans of other teams. I've got to be totally honest with you, but hey-oh.
But even if you look at the Premier League fixtures from this weekend, and look, we're recording this before the Fulham-Chelsea game, about the 9 fixtures, there's been 7 home wins, 1 draw, 1 away win.
There you go.
So, you can put that into the mix as well, into the conversation, can't you? It's not a case of, it's not a case of loads of away teams have turned up and got the points, and, it could have easily been more than that, couldn't it, with the penalty that Liverpool got against Newcastle, though it was absolutely 100% a penalty. I wouldn't have liked that if that had been given against us specifically.
I'd have gone off it. Honestly, I know we're going off piece a little bit, but I would have gone berserk if that was given against us. I thought they were really hard done.
Horrendous decision, but
however, Szoboszlai is in my fantasy team, so I was over the moon. You're right. You've made that point there. You've made a really, really good point there. That 1 away win, and 1 away win all through that. And was that Leeds? No, Leeds were.
That was Leeds against Forest.
Yeah. Leeds against, yes, I saw. That, and Forest had a poor home form last season, didn't they? So, and like I say, and what I found about the opening weekend is a lot of spankings, aren't there? Like, and I currently in Arsenal, you respect Arsenal to turn commentary over, but like, Brentford, getting 3, Brighton getting 4, Hull, there's a few spankings in that, which normally the first day of the season is quite a tight affair because teams don't want to lose. But you've seen some teams proper go for it, like, so it's been an exciting weekend. But, again, going back to us, we'll be absolutely fine. We'll be absolutely fine. It's just Ipswich did well, but you've got to remember we gave them 2 goals. And that's
it's one of those things. Look, we had it last season as well. And I know you can't take the Clark goal out of the equation. But if that goal hadn't been scored, which is a moment, it's a mistake that we give the ball away, and it's a moment, a great finish. If that 30 seconds hadn't happened, how do we view what went on before? Because you've got to bring that thinking into the equation when you're assessing. Yes, look, it's a results business, of course it is, right? But for the open day of the season, when we know players take 3 or 4 or 5 games of a regular season to get up to speed anyway, regardless of a World Cup, when a lot of our players have been playing. If that goal hadn't been scored, I'd have thought, we've done all right there. We've gone away from home, got a good point, played a lot of good possession football. Yes, we need to create more chances. Yes, we need to be a bit more ruthless in front of goal. There's areas to improve on. But as a starting base, that performance for 89 minutes, I thought, we've done pretty well. We've done all right there for the first game of the season, going to a newly promoted side, blah, blah, blah. That one goal, that 30 seconds of action changes everything in terms of the result, but shouldn't change everything in terms of how we analyse and look at what went on beforehand. Because a lot of, I'm not saying it was perfect, it wasn't perfect at all, but a lot of it was pretty good. And we shouldn't completely let what happened in that 30 seconds shade what went on before.
I think
we're going to take a really, sorry, go on.
Sorry, I'll be very quick. If you look at it, if you look at it as a whole, and like I say, you take the disappointment out, you probably think a draw was a fair result. I thought a draw was a fair result. I don't think we deserved to lose that game on Saturday. And it just came to, as you said, a mistake, which I think Alderweireld just needs to boot the ball up now.
Yeah, absolutely. But, we didn't do enough to win. I don't think we did anything to deserve to not pick up something. So I don't think Ipswich did enough to necessarily win. I think they maybe created a chance or two more than we did, but that's kind of to be expected from a team when they are at home. Anyway, look, we're going to take a very short break, and we will be back after a couple of ads because Ant raised the Hume Experiment, and I'm going to answer a few questions on that when we come back.
Before the season even kicks off, soccer fans are already making predictions. Who wins the league? Who qualifies for Europe? And who's lifting the trophy at season's end? On Kalshi, America's #1 prediction market platform, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use code CUP26 to get $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Kalshi. Trade the beautiful game. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory.
Propel Fitness Water. With Gatorade electrolytes, zero sugar, and vitamins, Propel hydrates better than water to help you get the most out of your workout and get back to your best self. What propels you? Propel with Gatorade electrolytes.
Welcome back to Haway, the podcast for our Q&A episode today. We've got tons and tons and tons of questions, and we're probably going to get through about 10% of them, I think, by the way things are going. But we will do our very best to plow through a few because we've had a few on Trey Hume. And Andrew, I'm going to come to you on these ones. So Clarkey has said, Hume isn't working, is it? Gaz Fisher says,
be Jack Clark, man.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Well, as Ant pointed out, if Trey Hume would still be on the pitch playing right back at that time, he might not have had the space to do it. So
sorry, man. Sorry, go on.
No, I really do hope it's Jack Clark. Actually, that would be fun. Gaz Fisher has said, do we think the Hume right-wing experiment needs to end? Now it feels like there's no obvious reason for why he plays there other than to shoehorn him into the team. Surely Rigg should be starting there on Sunday. Steve Mordew says, unpopular opinion, perhaps. I don't understand why we persist with Hume on the right midfield. He offers little from an attacking threat and is a progress stopper for the likes of Rigg, etc. He's excellent defensively, but surely we need to kick on as a team in an attacking sense. And NM says, how long do we think the Hume as right-wing experiment will/should continue? So there's a fair bit to pick through there, but Trey Hume and his position on that right-hand side of the midfield, Andrew, is a consistent, and it has been ever since he started playing there, hasn't he? It's a consistent source of questions and people not sure about it.
You're right. It's a regular topic of conversation. A couple of people use the word experiment there. I don't think it's an experiment anymore. We saw it plenty of times last season. We've had all of pre-season now. Yeah, okay, maybe the availability of others has had an impact on it against Ipswich, but I don't think we're trying this out anymore. I think it's here to stay. It's been used too many times now, and I don't have a problem with it other than which games do we use it in. If we are to apply that type of thinking away against Arsenal for argument's sake, seeing as they're the title holders, it makes a lot of sense to me. I actually don't think Trey Hume's attacking output is as bad as some people think it is. I wouldn't mind seeing a few stats to know if I'm just being a bit, rose-tinted spectacles on it. I get the impression, though, that we're just remembering his errors a bit more, and just anybody who plays on the wing is gonna try things and they're not going to pay off. So I'm not sure about that, but in general, I think it is. It's here to stay. I'd prefer it if it was only in certain games, and then at home, for example, Fulham's going to be a good test to see where Labrissa's thinking is. Against Fulham, could we afford to be a bit more attacking? And yeah, could Rigg go there for the time being? pending incomings and them settling. So that's my take on it. It has its worth. It should be used. It shouldn't be necessarily our preferred way of going about things, is how I'm saying it.
It's an interesting one. I know you've kind of declared your hand on this in part one of the pod. I think with Trey Hume, I'm really, like I've said before on the pod, when you watch him in that position and you watch him off the ball, he does an awful lot of good work off the ball. Now, I know that that's not what you want from your right winger necessarily. You would say, "Oh, our right winger is brilliant off the ball," but Hume's not playing as a right winger, and this is the thing. I think it gets a little bit lost when you see the team sheet and you see line up, because he's playing almost like an inverted wing back.
Yeah.
Like he sits in that sort of slightly inside channel, in line with the most defensive midfield player, really. Yes, he'll get up. His role, and it's a tactical thing from Debrief, isn't it? His role is there to create space for the right back to overlap. And I think Munier did it pretty well on Saturday. We've seen Mukiele do it a lot last season and create a problem for the opposition down that flank. The other bit, which, we'll never know, but the other bit is I'm curious how his position then creates space for Enzo Lafayette to play, because we've seen Hume deployed a lot in that position in the latter half of last season, and that coincided with Enzo moving infield and producing his best football for us. And I think there is part of that creates a free role almost for Lafayette to play, because he's got that extra backup behind him. I think the other bit to this is Debrief obviously loves Hume as a professional, as a character, as somebody who develops, takes his tactics on, all that sort of stuff. As a leader, he got the captain's armband last season in one game, didn't he? So
did, yeah.
I can see why Debrief has him in the team at certain bits from a tactical point of view, as well as everything else. I agree with Andrew. I think there's a time and a place for it. And I think in a lot of games this season, you might see him either deployed at right back, might see him on the bench, maybe come on to shore a game up, or in some away games, like Saturday, have him in that position for 60 minutes, chuck a more attacking right winger on when the game opens up for the last half an hour to try to win it. So I don't think it's a case of Trey Hume should never play right wing or right midfield for us ever again. He shouldn't be in that position. There'll be times and places where we need him to be in the team, and he comes in a position that you take a right winger out for. He's not playing right wing. He's not hugging the touchline and getting up to the corner flag and getting the byline. He's playing a completely different role, which enables other people to do other things. So I think there's a debate. Sorry, there's a risk of making this debate a really sort of binary one where we say yes or no. And I think the answer, it's often the case, isn't it? The answer is somewhere in the middle, and he can be useful there. But should he start every game in the right wing? No.
No, yeah. I think that's a great point, to be honest. And I like it when, obviously, we can't really see it like kind of what would have happened on Saturday, because had Mukiele been fit, because I like that Hume Mukiele kind of partnership, which he obviously hasn't got with Munier yet, because Munier is still very new. But I thought when he was playing there last year, it allowed Mukiele to bomb forward, and I think we got a goal in pre-season off that, and I think it was Mukiele who scored it, wasn't it? Where he just bombed forward, played a nice little interplay with Robbie, and then ended up getting a goal. And like I say, I love that, because it just lets Mukiele do what Mukiele can do, and at some points on Saturday, it did work well with Munier getting forward. My only problem is with him playing there is when you want him to, when he gets the ball and we're in attacking positions, he normally picks the wrong decision, or he normally can't. He passes to a defender. So his attacking play isn't great. So for someone who is kind of meant to be playing an attacking position, and I know he scored against Chelsea last year. He scored a couple of pre-season, didn't he? And he does get into those positions really well, to be fair to him. So like when he doesn't have to think about it and just an instinct kind of thing to get a cross in or to get a shot in, he is good at, because that's just something that's already in his head. It's when he's got to think, when he's got to when he's bombing forward and we've got, say, a 3-on-3 situation and his brain's ticking on and he's not, because he's not a forward, he's not like a forward player anywhere. He's a right back. He gets that decision all wrong. Whereas if Enzo Lafia or whomever's on it, you guarantee the pass is going to be the correct one. And that's the only thing I've got with it. Like, I would like to see Chris Rigg get a goal there, because I think Chris Rigg this season is going to have his coming of age season. I really do. On Sunday coming, if we don't have a right winger in play anyway, and I don't think if we sign some money this week, I don't think that's a guaranteed starter. But I would love to see Chris Rigg get a goal. I really would. I think he's going to have a really good season. I don't like this thing. Was it a progress stopper that he got mentioned as? I don't like that at all. I think that's a really, really silly, really silly thing to say, because Trey Hume has been one of the bright lights of the Register Briss era. He really has. He's been outstanding. So I don't like that. And he's there for a reason. And he's there because it does bring our right back into play. So you've just got to, I think you've just got to there is ways and means for it. Would I start him on Sunday there? No. Would I have started him Saturday there? Probably not. Because in games where I think we need to look to win, I'd rather just have an out-and-out winger playing there. But going to Arsenal, going to City, I'd probably have him there, because he gives us that extra layer of defensive cover. And as you said, it allows Lafayette just to get into those pockets of space as well. So he'll be there. He will be there. Do I like it? Do I like him now? I prefer him at right back? Yes, of course I do. I prefer him at right back. I think he's a bloody good right back. And I think, like I say, going back to Saturday, I think Jack Clark doesn't get the opportunity to cut in for Trey Hume there, because he would have just clattered him. But again, that's just ifs and whats and candy and nuts, isn't it?
Okay, I'd be interested to see, and I don't know how this would work necessarily, but Hume at right back and Mukiele playing that position slightly further forward. So I think Mukiele's got maybe more attacking.
I think you put Mukiele anywhere to be mint.
Well, I've said before, you could clone 10 or 11 of them and probably win the Premier League. But we've got a few questions about the defence, and that conversation about Trey Hume leads us very nicely into the manager. So Ben Cluj, it says Mukiele is neither right centre-back rather than right back. Or this question, is he neither a right centre-back rather than right back? Mounier looked great while Ballard looked weak. Notably, our superb last 3 games of the season had Mukiele playing at centre-back, and I think we are safer with him playing there. Carlos SAFC says, I think the best back 4 currently is Mounier, Mukiele, Alderete and Ronaldo. Metali may come into the picture in due course. Could we upgrade on Alderete? Adam Miller says, with the introduction of Mounier and Metali, what does that mean for Mukiele and Ronaldo play going forward? Do they play as full-backs or centre-backs? So there's a few questions in. We have got some options, and obviously, as we've talked about earlier, there's a potential to bring in another centre-half, which, I don't think anybody would be too surprised if we did so over the next week or so. So currently, if everybody's fit, what's your back 4 look like?
I didn't get the correspondent's name, but at the moment, I think we are looking at a back 4 of Mounier, Mukiele, Alderete and Ronaldo. That's because I've not seen Matali yet. He could be the one who becomes first choice. I always say this, mind, and people think I'm a right crawler. There's some good questions. There's been some good questions this morning. I might not necessarily agree with all of them or be of the same frame of mind, but, I like that people are still involved and connected with the team and wanting to ask questions and wanting to see how we can improve. So, yeah, I do agree with I think that's our current back 4. I love Mukiele at right centre-back. I think he's even better there than he is at full-back, because he gives us the back 4 a bit more pace and allows the team as a unit to push up the field on certain occasions. I'm not sure how I'm going to word this, so if this doesn't make sense, just stop me. Although, Martin, you would have stopped me months ago. You would have stopped me months ago if that was the case. So maybe not. But with Hume, for example, and him playing in a wide right position, with Mukiele playing at centre back, I think Lebris looks at the whole picture. So, Hume might not be able to do certain things in a more advanced role. As long as the team are getting the result, it doesn't matter. It's a bit like our style of play, and that we were talking about at the top of the episode. As long as over the course of the season, being slightly more defence-minded, being slightly more pragmatic, as long as that gets the job done, overall, we're fine with it. Lebris isn't going to make decisions on tactics or personnel or positions based purely on one game, based purely on losing to Ipswich. So Hume playing in an advanced role will be as a result of several factors over several weeks and the opposition and blah, blah, blah. And I think the same with Mukiele. Mukiele's phenomenal at right back and brings certain aspects, but doesn't really matter. If the team as a whole is better balanced by him doing a different job, we'll go with that. Lebris isn't there to let players improve their own show reels. Lebris is there to make sure that the 11 players wearing Sunderland shirts work as a unit and win. So, there's questions to be had, but that's where I think where he'll be coming at it from. You've also got to factor in, we've got a lot of fixtures. We've got a lot of fixtures this season, so whereas I might have a preferred back four in general, I don't necessarily want that play in every single game. I want there to be options mixed up in different ways done, and I like to think that the defensive unit as a group is all of a similar level. I don't think there's too much of a drop-off if you were to drop out one of those four that I mentioned. If you bring in Ballard, if you bring in 09, if you bring in Matali, hopefully, it's not like back in the day where if you brought in an understudy and they were completely off the pace and were just nowhere near as good as the person with the shirt. So between that group of players, there'll be plenty of performances, plenty of games to be had. And there'll be plenty of times when they change ever so slightly what they're expected to do. Again, Ballard, for example, Ballard would presumably be your first pick when we need just a defensive wall. Is that what you need at home to a relegation candidate? Perhaps not. There's lots of... And did somebody say there about, do we need to look to upgrade on Aldrete? Did I...
Yes, there was a comment on there. Could we upgrade on Alderete? And look, there's a few questions about that left side centre half position, whether we actually get somebody else in there. And I'm going to throw this one to you. This is my question now. It's just been sparked by listening to Andrew. But all this conversation we've had about the defence and the questions that we've had in have all been about a back four. Now, if we're struggling to get in a new winger, right, and we've, you read all about Metali and his attacking prowess playing primarily left wing back last season, apparently. Is there a case that we actually go, well, if we, especially if we bring in another centre half, a left side centre half, is there an opportunity to go five at the back? You've got either Hume, Mukiele, or Munier bombing up that right flank from wing back. On the other side, you've got Reynildo or Metali who could do it from the left. Is that a possibility? This is my question for you now. Is that a possibility, or is that a thing with Lebris where it's just going to be a back four all season?
So what formation are you going to? 3-5-2?
Well, I'm asking you. Do you think that we'll see us go with a three at the back or five at the back?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a scope to it. Because it brings in the likes of, we can put two up front, which I think probably would work very well off. You know, to like lay it off for like an Isidore or another striker or whatever. So I do think it kind of does. Yeah, I think it's it's an experiment. But I think the thing is with it, would we have seen it by now? Would we have had a look in pre-season where we could have had a look at three at the back? I probably would have guessed maybe. But it's there. We've got the players to do it. It's just I wouldn't be bringing it in, kind of halfway through the season or whatever. But it's certainly something to experiment at, maybe in the League Cup or in the Europa League games where we're playing, someone at home who we probably should beat anyway. It is probably something to look at because obviously, as you said, this Natalia coming in is predominantly a wing back who can bomb forward and is an attack-minded player. And obviously, Mukiele as a right wing back, I think it'd be outstanding. On Minier as well. So yeah, it's probably there to be experimented too. But at the moment, because he hasn't done it yet, I don't think I can see that happening anytime soon.
It's just interesting because, again, when talking about this, I was trying to recall when Hume first played in like a different position. And I'm sure it was a Chelsea away game when we did go to a back five, and Hume kind of played in this hybrid role where he was part of the three, but then he was stepping into midfield and all that.
Was
sort
it
of stuff.
Liverpool away?
I think that's when he first played right midfield,
right wing. In
front of a right back. But he had started experimenting with Hume's position. I'm sure it was that Chelsea game, and it just makes you think, if you kind of go, if he likes playing Hume, where can you get him in the team where you actually maybe use him a little differently or a little bit better and get the best out of wing backs? And that's just, that thought process is on the situation and scenario. If we don't get a new right winger in, are we better off actually going, okay, well, actually the squad of players that we've got is potentially more suited to a slightly different formation? As you say, I think we might have seen it previously or seen it in pre-season, certainly, if he was seriously thinking about that.
Experimented with, wouldn't it? You would have thought so anyway. Well, you would have hoped so.
You would hope so, but I certainly wouldn't be adverse to seeing it in a cup game if it's something that we wanted to try out. But there we go. Now we've got a question here, Andrew, from Ian Brown, and he says, if we bring in 2 or 3 more players, who doesn't make the bench from the Ipswich squad? In my opinion, I'd loan out Tarby and Mundle and bring in 2 right wingers. Now, the bench for the Ipswich game rather was Melborg, Diarra, Rigg, Isidore, Alderete, Mukiele, Tarby, Mundle, and Talby. All players who would want to get a first 11 place, who'd be targeting a first 11 place, potentially with the exception of Melborg. But Melborg, I keep calling him Elborg. I saw it.
Gav's mate's going to have a field day with us, isn't he?
I had his initial written down. I'd written the bench out, just so I had the bench there ready to go to. I'd written the initials out, and I didn't put a full stop in between. I was spacing between the M and the E. So Elborg, I apologize for that. But there is a lot of talent on that bench, and a lot of players who would be targeting the starting place this season, isn't it? Yeah, if we bring in 2 or 3 more players, then there is going to be serious competition there, isn't there?
There is. I think we're at a point where it's serious competition already. Melborg has tickled me, and do you know what, Martin? I didn't even notice it. I didn't even notice it when you said it at the time. One of the very earliest questions today, I think, used the term "we've been arrogant" in the transfer market. Did I hear that right?
Yeah.
Is that
There was
fair?
a comment that Regis Lefay had said, do you agree that the arrogant approach to transfers has contributed to the result yesterday?
That's it. Regis Lefay and Melborg. We're putting together a crack team here. I would argue that arrogant is unfair, personally speaking. I would use the term responsible. If you look purely at the finance side, we are. I don't want us throwing around some of the sums of money other clubs have. I look at some of the clubs and I just think, wow, I'm glad that's not Sunderland. some teams seem to be spending money as if it's going out of fashion. We'll put the finances to one side. I think bringing players in, one of the reasons why we haven't signed more at this point is because we've not had as many outgoings as we expected. We're at a point now where we're getting to the limit of the amount of non-homegrown players we can have. So buying more players, unless you are 100% right and you are precise, as Lebris said, and you are definitely confident that this is the one that's going to bring the group forward, would be really, really foolish, I think. And that leads on to this point from Ian Brown. Again, is it just somebody called Ian Brown, or is it the Ian Brown? I'm sorry, Ian. I know, Ian. You'll get comedians saying that and like, "Oh, brilliant, mate! You're the first one to make that observation." But the bench is quite strong already, and there's not many dead weights there. There's not many youth products being given the opportunity to travel with the first team to get a taste of things, because we've got a lot of quality already at the club. I do think two of the names that were mentioned from that list of subs are the ones who we potentially look to move on, but only temporarily. Tarby, we've already heard whispers of a potential loan move for him. Yeah. And I think that's all Sunderland would look at, a loan. I don't think they want to get rid. And Mundle's an interesting one, because I don't think anybody on the outside fully knows what he's capable of yet. The only person that does know is Lebris, and Lebris keeps going back to him and giving him opportunities and having him around the matchday squad. That suggests to me that he's got something. I sometimes wonder with Mundle, could he be a bit more adventurous? Sometimes I think he looks to have the pace, he looks to have the position to bomb on past somebody, yet he chooses to stop and look up and play the ball backwards or sideways. I'd like to see him take a few more chances, maybe. But that might be instructions. He might be doing exactly the job Lebris has told him to do. So that could be me being unfair. We're at a point, though, where our squad is quite highly stacked. Unless there's outgoings, I don't think we have the room to bring in too many more.
It's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because you factor then in the number of games that we've got to play this season and the need for the squad to fully be utilised. And, we worked out, didn't we, that even if a player plays half of the game or starts half of the games this season, they'll probably start 25 games. So, you're going to need a squad. And if you've got a squad of 22 who are all capable of coming in and playing at the first team level, at a good level, you're going to have a couple of players who are missing from the bench, who don't make the bench on game days. And, the Tarby and the Mundle one's really interesting for me. And I think the point that you raised, Andrew, with the willingness to really attack from Mundle, I don't think that's just Mundle. I think we saw it on Saturday with Talby and Angulo as well. I think there was a lack of drive to really attack. There was more of an emphasis on keeping possession and trying to work it further up the pitch rather than just getting the ball and going for an attack. I think with Mundle, we were talking about him on a pod last week, and I think he's actually only played about 5 or 6 90 minutes for us. He hasn't played much football at all. So you factor in that he's got a lack of experience at first team level, really. Plus a lack, I think he'll have a lack of confidence in his own body with the amount of injuries that he's got. So for him to be going full pelt in the game, he's got to have had 10, 15, 20 games where he's been able to build up to that and his body hasn't given way. Which is why I think for Mundle, a loan move to the Championship or something like that would be fantastic for him. Get him out there till January, get him 15, 20, 25 games where he's playing week in, week out, and he's training week in, week out, and he can get that confidence back in his own body as well as his footballing ability. and then he can come and challenge for a place, because I think he has got a load of talent, and one of the big attributes I like from him is he's a genuine goal threat. He will cut inside and shoot, and he's got a great shot on him, and he's really direct when he's on his game. And I think we've seen that tempered a little bit, but I do think it's the injuries and the mental side of it, rather than him not being good enough to step up to the Premier League. So I think Mundle needs a loan, but not necessarily to make up positions in the squad for other people. I think he needs a loan for us to see the best of him, whether it's in 6 months or 12 months' time, because I think he'd benefit hugely from it. RB is... Sorry, go on, Ant.
No. Keep going, because I agree with everything you said so far.
I'll come to you on both of them in a second, but like Tarby is the interesting one for me because he's so inexperienced, but the club seemed to really fancy him, and they chucked him into the first team straight away as soon as he arrived. He's obviously been around the squad most of the pre-season, apart from when he wasn't let into America. But he's on the bench on Saturday, and you wouldn't be surprised to see him get put on or even start. I think it was Fulham at home last season he started, didn't he? Got thrown in and caught everybody by surprise. But even when you look at all of the training videos and stuff like that, he's right in amongst the action. He's having the crack with all of the lads, having a laugh. He's right in the middle of everything. So I think he seems to be quite a popular player behind the scenes as well. I just do wonder whether he's one that will keep around, get him used to being a Premier League footballer, get him used to being at Sunderland, because Mundle's already used to all of that sort of stuff, and give him some experience from the bench and starting a few games this season, because the little glimpses I've seen of him, I think he could be a real sort of, joker card to play on some occasions.
He's definitely got this thing of being like a little gem in the crown, hasn't he? There's something there in him. You've seen it. You even see it in that very brief debut that he had against Fulham, where like at times didn't look like he knew where anything was, and his corners were awful. But then
Don't talk about his corners.
Pace was unbelievable, wasn't it? Like a couple of times he got into such good positions, and you were like, oh, like I think there was one point if he'd had a left foot, he had a really good opportunity to cross in, and he tried to use his right. I think he missed it. But he looked like he did look. There was something there. He looked like there's definitely like a little bit of a wild card. I'm like, so I think he's a one like your League Cups, your FA, well maybe not FA Cup, but like your League Cups, and again going back to some of these games in Europe, like we are going to get to games, don't get us wrong, but there's going to be some games where we're expected to beat teams at home. You know what I mean? And they're the kind of games I'd like to see Tarby get thrown in and getting experience and stuff like that. But I want to go back to your Mundle point, because there's a nail somewhere that you need to hammer in, because that was practically on the head. Like, he definitely, for him, needs a loan, because he needs to go somewhere, play 20, 25 games, hopefully not get injured, or his hamstring just doesn't, his hamstring just pulls up, which I think he's over it now, don't they? That's why they're on about sign him a new contract. Yeah. I think he's over that injury. There's only one way to find out, and that's him playing football. And at the minute, he's got Angulo ahead of him, Talby's ahead of him, and he's going to be third choice left winger. They're not going to find out about that if he doesn't play football matches. So for me, him going out long makes perfect sense. Going to like the championship side who were hungry and looking for promotion. You look at, I don't particularly care if loan now plays to Borough, but you look at Borough or something, go to Borough and playing an attack-minded side who are doing well. I think that would make a lot of sense for him, because again, going back to him, we know there's a player there, and I think that's what's frustrating when he was playing some of these games last year, when he was just passing the ball sideways, because that he's capable of doing that little cut in and having a goal and all that. He scored a few goals in the championship like that. It's the same with Angulo. You look what Angulo did in the World Cup against Germany. Ran with the ball, cut in, shot, goal. And you're like, they're capable of it. So, we just want to see more, don't we? And that's what that's kind of what you want your wingers to do. You want them to bomb forward, get shots away and all that stuff. And I think maybe going back to what was on Saturday, I think we were set up not to lose the game. Don't take too many unnecessary risks, and if we can get a cheeky one and win 2-1, it'd be brilliant. But I think we were set up not to lose, but bad happened. But yeah, I think them two probably would, if we signed a couple of players this week, probably would miss out on a squad. Like, next game or something. But Derby's definitely one to watch, like, definitely. Like I say, that, I mean, we're not in the League Cup starts this week, doesn't it? Well, I say for Premier League side starts this week, but we missed that one out, don't we? We've got like the next stage, but I'd love to put him in there. Like, I really would. I do think he's got something about him. Like,
no, he has, absolutely. Right, I've got one final question for us here before we wrap up, and this is from Curious Columbo, and we've already had an email from Clarkey, and it's about Clarkey once more. So, and I'll stick with you on this one to start with. Curious Columbo asks, what are your thoughts on players celebrating against their old clubs? I've seen some people say Clark celebrated too much after he scored. He scored the goal to win their home opener. Let him have his moment. It's not like he looked over to the away end and flipped fans the bird. Did that upset you?
No.
Or were you quite content with it?
No, I really couldn't care less. Like, I totally get, like, what people say. He didn't come in over all fans, like the Bristol Rovers lad did on Saturday, by the way. Top quality shithousery. But I mean, what's he meant to do there? What's he meant to do? He scored a goal in the 90th minute. His team, who only won one home game the last time we were in the Premier League, have won against a good side who's qualified for European football. Last minute of the game, nice finish as well. He doesn't even celebrate that much. He just runs off, does his usual, like, does his cup stands to his celebration. He's done that for a few years now. And that was it. It wasn't as if he was, like, taking his shirt off and doing all that palaver and all that stuff. Like, what's he meant to do there? Like, what? And I've seen that a few times on the social media. It's like, well, blah, blah, blah. He hasn't played for us for 2 years. Like, he's an Ipswich town footballer. Like, well, what's the issue? Like, he's done his job. To sound like Roy Keane, he's done his job. He owes us absolutely nothing. You know what I mean? He gave us a couple of years of great service, fantastic footballer. And by the way, I'd have him back in a heartbeat. I'd say that now. I would have him back in a heartbeat. I think he's a wonderful player. But I've got no problem with it. And you know what, Jack? Celebrate all you want from me. You know what I mean? And congratulations as well, because it was a nice finish.
No, it was an excellent goal. And Andrew, you and I recorded the podcast with Kelvin the other day, which is going to be coming out tomorrow. And we were talking about a game back in 1999, I think, with Kevin Phillips scoring against Watford and celebrating. I did make the point, I hate this nonsense where players don't celebrate against the former clubs. And it just so happened a few hours later, Jack Clark sticks that one in. Yeah, I did think back to that comment.
So it's your fault, Martin, and that's what we're trying to say now.
It's my fault. Yes, I can preempt things that are going to happen in the future. Absolutely. But it did make me feel worse. The fact that he did celebrate, because Jack Clark was probably my favourite player when he was at the club. But I can't hold any grudges for him celebrating. I don't think anybody should. I think you've got to look at Clark as well. He hasn't been able to nail a regular place in the Ipswich side the 2 years he's been there. He's struggled to some extent to actually get a regular place and get his form going and get in his proper position. And for him, and I think did the commentary say on Saturday that in their last season in the Premier League, he hadn't scored for them. So that's his first Premier League goal for Ipswich, if not his first Premier League goal.
I think that might be wrong. I think that might be wrong. I think he did score for them in the Premier League. I think he did. I'll double check, but I think he did.
Well, you can blame the commentators if that's the case, not me. I'm just I should have fact checked it, of course. But regardless, Jack Clark coming on from the bench, hadn't been in the starting lineup, comes on, scores a really nice goal. I don't think you can realistically hold any grudges from enjoying that moment, can you?
Nah. On the commentators there was a couple of faux pas, wasn't there? Gav was really unhappy that they got the Spandau Ballet songs mixed up. And I've not heard it myself, but apparently on Match of the Day, somebody referred to us as the Magpies, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah, somebody on Ready to Go was pointing that out. So, yeah, there's
these ones are BBC. There we go.
Oh, no, you are right. Sorry, just to go back to it, he scored in the FA Cup. That's my fault, sorry.
Oh, there we go. There you go.
I thought he'd scored in the league. Sorry, so that is right.
Well, either way, Martin's right when he says Jack Clark hasn't been a nailed-on regular player for them. So there was a bit of feeling to it for him. Listen, he's a grounded fella. If you were to speak to him off the pitch, no doubt in my mind that he'll recognise and treasure the role Sunderland had in his resurrecting his career. Because we picked him up when things were on a downward trajectory for him. But come on, man. I mean, he didn't start like running to the Sunderland fans, flicking the V's or nothing. He just celebrated like a last-minute goal in a highly charged environment. People say football's becoming sterile, and then you've got people saying, "Oh, players shouldn't celebrate." I saw nothing in it. I didn't take anything by it. My niece did, mind. I think I've said before, she is still Jack Clark's #1 fan. She's got a job now, and she's already booked off that weekend to make sure she's got no shifts when Jack Clark comes back to the stadium. I've told her, man, when you leave Sunderland, that's it. You're dead to me. But bless her, she's a lot more loyal than me, and she's still got a bit of affection for Jack Clark. So she wasn't best pleased, but other than that, no, he's within his rights.
No, I think so too. And he did say, actually, he was asked about it after the game, and he said, I had thought before the game, if I do score, I won't celebrate. I'll be very respectful for the circumstances of the game, the timing of it, the goal he scored, just emotions overtook him, and take that emotion out of football, and you've got nothing left, man. So,
but do you not think it wasn't respectful anyway? Like again,
oh no, but I think it's that thing. No, but I think, and it's that thing where we've seen players in the past, haven't we, where they score against the club that they've played for, and then they'll walk back and shake hands like they used to do in the olden days, and not celebrate. And there was one player, who was it? I'm sure it involved Aston Villa, where somebody had been on loan, or he'd been linked with them. He hadn't even had a meaningful spell with them. He'd actually just been linked with them, and he didn't celebrate when he scored. I'm just like, come off it. Like, well, honestly, if you take that emotion out, if he's run past the Sunderland fans, giving it all this, then yes, that's different. But he celebrated as is right, as we want to see footballers play with passion and enthusiasm.
Exactly.
No wrong with that, man.
Look at it from Ipswich's point of view. They'd be furious if a player had any focus in the moment other than playing for Ipswich.
No, totally correct.
I wouldn't want a Sunderland player having in the back of his mind, come kick off, having in the back of his mind, I've got some sort of affection for the opposition.
No. And, if the situation was reversed and somebody scored a winner for us, you say, you'd think less of them if they didn't enjoy that moment, be fully into that moment. So, absolutely nothing wrong with what Jack Clark did, and I agree with Ant. If he was available, I would have him back tomorrow and get him straight into the team. But that's another conversation for another day.
Right wing,
so we will
go on the right.
well, we know he can't. So we're gonna have to bring him back and play. When give him.
I think it's wild how, again, it's just I've just been looking on his little stats there because I got his Premier League thing. He got 15 goals last year for Ipswich. 15 goals. I know it was in Championship, but this is a player we're seeing he can't get in because obviously in Seesaw was playing instead of, wasn't he, on Saturday? And he can't really get in. He'd struggled the first time they were in the Premier League. But we're seeing a team of lose 7. I honestly think he'd walk back in our side. I really do. I think he's brilliant. But different strokes for different blood.
I know it's a completely different conversation, but you wonder where his career would be if he'd stayed with us and gone up with us compared to where he is now. Because I think I genuinely think he'd be pushing for international football if he'd stayed with us and been playing regularly. But anyway, that's it's a whole podcast in itself, I think. So we will wrap it up there for today. We've got tons of questions. I do apologise if we didn't get to your questions. We'll see if we can fit another Q&A pod in later on in the week. But thank you very much, Andrew.
Brilliant. Cheers.
And thank you, Ant. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Enjoyed that. Thanks, everybody, for your questions as well.
Yeah, no, thank you, everyone, for sending those in. If you want to contribute to our Q&A pods in the future, just drop us an email, howaythepodcast@safc.gmail.com, or look out for the X post that usually comes out on a Sunday, probably on Monday, because we are playing on Sunday at the weekend. We have got tons coming up on Haway the Podcast, of course. We have got a brand new pod tomorrow called The Sunday Years. Andrew, Kelvin, myself delve into everything that happened in 1999, including about 20 minutes spent on Coronation Street, which was a lot of fun. And we have got all sorts of other stuff as we build up to the Fulham game and the Europa League draw on Friday as well, which is going to be a lot of fun. But until tomorrow, it is goodbye from us.
We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.